Wildfires ravage the west coast of Canada as hundreds of thousands of Canadians are displaced from their homes and told to evacuate. A similar tragedy happened in Kelowna, British Columbia in 2003, where roughly 25,000 hectares of land was ravaged. In May of 2016, fire engulfed Fort McMurray in northern Alberta, with nearly 600,000 hectares of land burned over the course of almost a month. It was the most expensive natural disaster in Canadian history. And that's not to downplay the tragedy that wildfires cause hundreds of thousands of displaced Canadians. But if we fast track to today in 2023, the Liberal government, coupled with far left eco-radicals, would have you believe that this is the result of the climate crisis, the latest emergency that we should all be afraid, very afraid of, and prepared to acquiesce to. Behold, the climate emergency. It's a mode of wording that's used intentionally to ensure that you take the issue seriously. And that seriousness means that the government must force you to act quickly. In demanding this action, which thanks to the Justin Trudeau Liberals, it means that we must all pay excessive taxes to ensure that the once hidden social costs of carbon emissions become front and center through the carbon tax, creating a ripple effect that acts as a deterrent and a barrier to doing, well, just about anything, including eating and heating your home. See, the luxury of simply being able to afford to put gas in your car to get to and from work, or heat your home with reliable fossil fuels, or of course, afford groceries that need to be transported across our vast country for stocking, is becoming out of reach for Canadians who emphasize how unbearable the cost of living and the crisis has become in recent years, with viral TikToks and other short clips posted on various social media platforms. They depict the breadth of disparity felt by those just starting out to those who need to feed and clothe their children. And of course, seniors are not exempt from this tax either. The accounts are heartbreaking.
So I live in Ontario, and I need someone to tell me the pros and cons of living in America, because at this point, Canada just ain't it. It's just like not it anymore. Like the cost of living, it's too much. The wages are staying the same. I can't afford to move out. I'm 24 and I'm embarrassed that I can't move out. I can't. So what am I supposed to do? Where am I supposed to go? What are the pros and cons of living in America? And everyone's like, oh, Canada's so great, this and that. It's not anymore. Free healthcare. You know how long it takes to see a mental health professional in Canada? A year. Dermatologist? A year. I might as well pay for private healthcare. The wait list is so long. Like, you don't even get the adequate help that you need. So where do we go at this point? Where are we supposed to live? Where can I live in a place where I'm able to enjoy my life as well? Because I'm not enjoying it here. I feel so utterly stuck. I don't know what to do anymore. You go to school, you get a degree, and you're still not guaranteed a job. $60K a year? That used to be like a decent amount of money. Not anymore. So where do we go? What are the pros and cons of living in America? Because I need to get out of here.
As Trudeau's policies metaphorically burn Canadians, causing grotesque fallout and devastation in their midst, the one that becomes a clear example of catastrophe is none other than Bill C-18, otherwise known as the Online News Act, which is legislation that has caused social media giant Meta, which owns Facebook and Instagram, to block a wide range of news links on their platforms. It effectively ceases Canadians' ability to access any and all news on their platforms. The Liberals chose to ignore the key concerns around this piece of heavy-handed legislation, like that raised by Google, which includes an extremely broad definition of eligible news businesses, an unprecedented influence of the news by the regulators responsible for enforcing this act, which is the Canadian Radio, Television and Telecommunications Corporation, i.e. the CRTC. And Google even went so far as to say that this act would break Google search for everyone, not just Canadians. They say that the link tax would fundamentally break the way search and the internet as a whole have always worked. Internet oligarch Google was keen on working with the government to get this legislation right, but instead the Liberals repeatedly cut off debate in order to ram through Bill C-18 before the summer break. And while it hasn't been officially enacted yet, it will be any day. Instead of repealing this piece of legislation that was condemned as arbitrary and ambiguously worded, Trudeau shifted blame when he was questioned recently about the inability of Canadians in fire-engulfed regions to access timely and accurate news about the rapidly evolving situation.
Local news is so important, and the work that people are doing to share messages and keep people informed with safe, up-to-date information is unbelievably essential to keeping Canadians safe. That's why, and I'm going to make a comment on this, it is so inconceivable that a company like Facebook is choosing to put corporate profits ahead of ensuring that local news organizations can get up-to-date information to Canadians and reach them where Canadians spend a lot of their time, online, on social media, on Facebook. Facebook made billions of dollars in profits over the past years, including off of Canadians. And we recently passed legislation that says, Facebook, if you're going to be sharing news or work done by Canadian journalists or local news, you have to make sure they're compensated for it fairly. Well, instead of making sure that local journalists are fairly paid for keeping Canadians informed on things like wildfires, Facebook is blocking news from its sites. In a larger picture, that's bad for democracy, because democracy depends on people being able to trust high-quality journalism of all sorts of different perspectives and points of view. But right now, in an emergency situation, where up-to-date local information is more important than ever, Facebook's putting corporate profits ahead of people's safety, ahead of supporting quality local journalism. This is not the time for that. This is the time for Canadians to continue to pull together and be there for each other. It's time for us to expect more from corporations like Facebook that are making billions of dollars off of Canadians.
The ability of Trudeau to remain out of touch to his own failures is pretty amazing, isn't it? Canadians and the public both deserve and need access to credible news. The government's attempt to mandate payment from social media platforms that enable this access actually contradicts basic freedoms and hinders freedom of the press by way of media communications.